Hi, we are students at UCL Academy and we are interviewing you based on Camden's Black History Season and STEAM Futures Initiative. My name is Leah and I would like to know, what is your current job role and where do you work?
Okay, so I work at Facebook and my current job role is responding to crisis issues. So when people are posting, like doing posts on Facebook or Instagram mainly, that can actually lead to harm for other people, then I was worked on like our response to that, those types of problems. Yeah.
Tell us a bit about yourself and your background.
Okay, so I am British. My parents are from Jamaica and Guyana, and so I've lived.
My parents are from Jamaica and Guyana as well.
No way.
Yeah.
That is such a coincidence.
So that was just weird.
Yeah. So yeah, I wonder if they know. I wonder if there's people that they know that's like the same.
I know, that would be so weird if they know each other.
But yeah, so that's okay. Okay, so yes, my parents are from Jamaica and Guyana. They came here when they were like quite young, like kind of teenage. And then, so I was born in the UK and I've lived like in different parts of the UK before. But then when I went to university, I got very interested in like things internationally, like international affairs, which was never something I thought about before. And so then at university, I did a year abroad and really enjoyed that, really enjoyed learning a new language. And so then when I left, I went to China. Like I've worked in like some different places in Africa, in like Democratic Republic of Congo, Liberia, South Sudan, and also like in different parts of Europe as well, like Belgium and the European Union. And then, yeah, so that's what I was basically doing mainly before working at Facebook.
What got you interested in working in your current job?
So it's interesting. So for me, I quite like challenges. I like to work on like new things, like things that are not kind of standard. Because I think I'm just not someone who likes to be in like a kind of standard routine job. And so for me, this was very interesting because it's working on problems that are very new to the world, because that's what happens a lot with technology problems. It's things we didn't guess would be problems before. And it's also like within my job, I work a lot on like issues that come from sub-Saharan Africa. I'm the team lead for that. And for me, it's like the region is very important to me as well. Like my parents are from the Caribbean, but of course, a long time ago, like my ancestors would have actually been from like the Africa continent as well. And so it actually feels a lot like kind of like protecting my community, I suppose, a bit as well.
What skills and attributes did you think you needed to acquire to achieve or succeed in your job role?
I think a lot of flexibility. So with my family, and especially when we were younger, because of like personal circumstances, we needed to move around a lot, and we really didn't have a lot of money. We were like, we didn't always have like a lot of food or things like this. And so I think things like that makes me very resourceful. And I think that actually really does help a lot, because again, it's working on problems which we didn't know about before. So it's really about thinking, what do we have? What can we quickly pull together to relate to this? But also I think being able to understand different people that experience problems. I feel like that's a real benefit I have to the job, because it's like I think I can relate easily to people that are like people that are kind of dealing with problems that will not be normal for like say most people working in like tech companies and things to understand as well. And I think also curiosity, like willing to try new things. I think that's helped me a lot with taking risks to just, for example, it's like, oh, I want to go to China. I don't have the money. What job can I get or to pay for me to go to China, or like these kind of things. I think it does actually help a lot with being able to get the type of experience that you can sell well to a recruiter for like these types of roles too.
Hi, I wanted to ask if there were any other Black leaders in your field or any other walks of life that have inspired you to be where you are today.
In the tech field, I would say before I started in Facebook, I would say there wasn't really any that I knew about. Like actually from being in, because I think the typical type of person you see is like, you know, it's kind of like a guy from the US, probably went from like one of the elite universities in the US, and it's not necessarily people I did relate to. So that was actually a concern I had. Like, but obviously from working here, I can see there's a lot more Black people in general. There are like a lot of Black leaders, not enough, but there are still a lot that are very inspiring. But I think before coming into this role, in terms of Black leader role models, I mean, of course, like everybody looks up to like people like Oprah Winfrey and things. I think Monique is someone who I actually find very inspiring, even still today, because I think she's very authentic and she really advocates for herself, even when that's not popular and not well understood by a lot of people. It's kind of like she puts her values on the forefront, kind of regardless of what the reaction is going to be. And so, yeah, that's somebody who I definitely respect a lot. And in my career, especially with the UN, I did have a manager called Mustafa who was from Mali. And he is somebody who, like, from very early on in my career, I really did it's somebody who I really did look up to, like, because it's a very senior person, but a very, very humble person as well. And somebody it kind of shows that it doesn't really matter how high you are. It's very important for you to still be able to listen to people. And I think that, yeah, so I think that I hope that answers your question. Yeah.
As a Black person in your field, have you faced any challenges?
Yes, I would say so. I think there's a lot of things that are kind of, you know, like the things you probably see in statistics that make it like, you know, whether it's harder for you to kind of get a foot in the door or harder for your background or perspectives to be recognized, because also like I think that's part of kind of being Black, but also coming from a background that's, you know, it's not the same. Like I was raised, as I said, like in a single parent family in a not very like, you know, and I didn't really have a very wealthy background to be able to do a lot of the different things other people did, or like to have those networks. So I think and I think being Black, it's nearly like another level of difference that can sometimes make it harder for people to actually see that, you know, to actually be able to recognize what you can bring to the table. But then I think, and so on the same time, there's like other challenges that I work with, which is something I think like we become more sensitive to, because being Black or being like a minority, you're kind of used to seeing things like a different reality to what the mainstream view will be or what the mainstream story is. And so I think like being able to articulate that in a way that other people can understand is something that I'm actually working on now. It really is like a focus of mine, because I think it's kind of like, yeah, like sometimes it's seeing a different world than what like other people that come from more dominant groups see. And with that, there comes like a few more frustrations, I think, to be able to like to have people understand what it means if you're not from that dominant group.
What advice would you give to a young person who's interested in your job or joining your sector?
I would say, like, in this case, I would say follow your passion. And the reason I say that is because it's a sector and it's an area that's evolving all the time. Like for me personally, you know, the job I'm doing didn't exist a few years ago. And I mean, you know, Facebook would have existed, but the product that it was doing, like say maybe even like 5 years ago or 10 years ago, is very different from the product it is now. And so I think there's some things that you could really do to plan for that. Like, you know, there's some people I know that have a very kind of they have a very kind of strategic approach to their career and their 10-year plan and things like this. And I think if you're working in innovation and technology, I think it's about like everything changes so fast, it becomes a bit more difficult. Like there's core skills that you can build. For example, with my role, which is based on public policy, and so like the core skills will be kind of things like just being able to explain things well to people, being able to write well, being able to break down a problem. These are things that you can build in any area. So it makes the most sense that you're going to be doing that in an area that you're passionate about. And I think it's also just trusting that wherever your passion leads you when you work hard, if you're working hard for it and you're able to kind of, you know, like get some benefits back, whether that's from training or like university or things like this, like trust that there is actually going to be a job there, even if it's not like you can't see it in your immediate environment. It really is worth kind of just pursuing that to see where it will take you.
What's the best thing about your job?
I think the people, for sure. Like I work with probably like some of the smartest people I've ever met, but also like just some of the nicest people. Like it's really becomes like a family. And so, as I mentioned, because it's a lot of crisis work, like, you know, sometimes the content that we work on and the things we work on can be very difficult, like emotionally, but also sometimes just it could be very, very tiring. And I think when you have good people that you work with, it just makes everything a lot easier. Yeah.
I wanted to ask how you said that you have to keep changing because as the years go by, it keeps changing. I wanted to ask what things do you do to adapt to these new changes?
I study a lot. So like, I mean, formally, like I've done, I identify things that I don't understand that I would like to understand, and then I just find ways to do that. So it could be through like maybe doing a different degree or something like this, but also the thing is now that there's like, it's so easy to use things like Coursera. Like for me, like Coursera is like a godsend. It's even sometimes when I'm thinking like, oh, actually, I think I'm interested in working in this area. Like one time, a few years ago, I became very fascinated with, say, urban planning, which is very different to what I was doing before. But actually being able to kind of go and join like a free kind of course and just watching some of those videos. And it's actually also getting a sense of like, oh, this is what it's about. This is something I can learn about it, but actually maybe I'm not so interested in this. But likewise, there's other things that I've picked up like through places like Coursera or just reading books as well that have been very, very instrumental in terms of like my decisions to kind of go into an area as well. So yeah, so I would say like, it's like personally, I feel like you just can never study enough. And it's always easy to find places to like understand new bits of information. But I do think also like something that I didn't really have very much access to when I was young and I was like pursuing my career, but actually like I can see differently now is like to try to just make use of whatever networks you can. So for example, on LinkedIn, I've had so many people that just reach out to me like out of the blue just to say, I'm interested in doing what you're doing, whether that's like a more senior level professional or even someone very young. And I think like, and you know, I will always typically say yes. But then, and I think that it's something that I would never have dared to do when I was younger. And I think I'd be very worried about the rejection. But actually, everybody else I know that I talk to about it are also kind of, they're very willing to try to help. Or even if that is just a conversation. So even if you don't have anyone in your immediate network, being able to use technology to try to expand your network of people to talk to is actually, it's a very, very useful tool. And you might have to develop a bit of a thick skin in that you might get no sometimes, but I think probably if you send it to 10 people, at least some of those people will say yes.
You mentioned earlier about how you used to travel a lot and like how you like went from one place to another. How did you sustain like that drive and enthusiasm for throughout your journey?
I think it's just because I followed my passion. I didn't really follow a career path at all, which might not be the best advice, like necessarily. But it's but I'd be kind of like doing something, and it's like, oh, okay, I'm interested in this. Let me try and do something else. And some things like would work out really well. Like some things like I tried to, start my own business before and learn how to code. And that's something that, I mean, I learned a lot from it, but it didn't really suit me as a person too. So not everything did work out well, but I think like when taking it kind of as an approach of just, it's like you can try anything, but you actually also can say no to anything. Like if I try it out, even if it's after like 2 months, I decide I don't like it, it doesn't mean to say that I have to stay for 3 years. Yeah. So it's nearly like just approaching it more as like experimenting and playing, I suppose, than actually thinking about it in terms of like this is the career I'm having to commit to for the rest of my life.
Yep. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thanks, Chanell.
Thank you. I hope I was okay.
No, that's really brilliant. Yeah.
Okay.
It's perfect for my end. So
Excellent.
I'll send the recording over because you want to see it, I think, before we publish on YouTube and so on.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
great.
thanks for your time.
That's okay. All right then. Bye.
Cheers. Bye.
I liked her. She was very nice.
Yeah. Stop recording.
I've got way to go on her Twitter.
Yeah, your grin is
No, yeah, because like I never